Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into Ramadan.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic.
It is, and we're going beyond the basics. We've got some interesting Islamic texts alongside those beginner guides to really explore what makes this month so special.
Exactly. It's something that, even if you haven't personally observed it, really resonates.
Absolutely. We're going to cover those essential practices, for those who are new to this, but we're also going to get into the deeper meaning, like the nuances that make Ramadan so much more than just fasting.
Right. It's like we all know the sun rises and sets, right?
Yeah.
But when you delve into the science and the stories, it just becomes so much richer. And that's what we're going to try and do with Ramadan today.
Okay, so let's get started. One thing I was reading about was that the start of Ramadan isn't fixed to a specific date.
It's true.
It's tied to the lunar calendar.
Yeah. And that's where the element of anticipation comes in. So each year, Muslims around the world, they're waiting for that official announcement, which is based on sighting the new moon.
Yeah.
And it's just a reminder that this isn't just a date on the calendar. This is an actual celestial event.
Wow.
That unites a global community.
That's beautifully put. Now, I've always been intrigued by the concept of taqwa. It comes up a lot when we talk about Ramadan.
It does.
Can you maybe explain what that means and how it relates to this idea of fasting?
Yeah, taqwa, it's a powerful word. It's often translated as God consciousness, but I think it goes a bit deeper than that.
Okay.
It's about developing an awareness of the divine presence in every single aspect of your life. So your actions, your thoughts, even your intentions.
Right.
And fasting really, by its very nature, cultivates this.
Right.
Because when you're consciously abstaining from something as basic as food and drink, it's like this constant reminder of your dependence on something greater than yourself.
Yeah. So you're not just going through the motions, you're making that conscious choice.
Exactly.
And that seems to be at the heart of taqwa.
Exactly. And this concept of taqwa is highlighted so beautifully in the Quran.
Okay.
Where it states, "O you who have faith, fasting is prescribed for you, as it was prescribed for those before you, that you may become righteous."
Wow.
And it kind of emphasizes that universal and timeless nature of this practice,
Right.
This is aimed at attaining righteousness through that conscious effort.
So it seems like taqwa is this thread connecting all the practices during Ramadan.
Absolutely.
It's not just the outward actions, but this inner transformation.
Yes. There's this incredible hadith that describes fasting as like a shield, protecting us from the fires of hell. I mean, that's powerful imagery, It speaks to those inner battles we all face, the temptations.
So it becomes a way to strengthen our willpower. It's like, a spiritual workout.
Absolutely. It's about building that muscle, that self-control muscle of choosing that higher good over immediate gratification. And it's not just food and drink. It extends to our speech, actions, our thoughts.
It's like this, like you said, holistic approach. Physical, mental, spiritual.
It's a complete reset. And this idea of it being more than just physical is beautifully illustrated in a story that I came across.
Okay.
It talks about how, the truly righteous felt no shame in sharing their innermost thoughts publicly because they were pure.
Wow.
That's the level of spiritual purity Ramadan is about.
So powerful. Striving for that kind of purity, naturally it would lead to positive actions and interactions with others.
Exactly, yeah. It's like a ripple effect. And this idea of spiritual renewal is reflected in the Hadith. It states, "The 5 prayers, Friday to Friday, and Ramadan to Ramadan will be expiation for the sins between them, so long as major sins are avoided."
Wow.
So it's like a clean slate, a fresh start.
That's incredibly powerful.
It is.
It seems to tie into something very, very human, this idea of yearning for renewal, redemption. That's what makes Ramadan so relatable, even if you don't practice Islam.
It taps into something very universal, that desire to connect with something greater and become better.
So speaking of becoming better versions of ourselves, one thing that's always fascinating me about Ramadan is how it goes beyond the individual.
It does.
It fosters this incredible sense of community. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah. Ramadan is, it's a shared experience in the truest sense.
Right.
You've got millions of people around the world, all united in this act of worship, going through those same challenges, experiencing those same spiritual highs and lows. It creates a bond that's unlike any other.
It's like a global movement happening at the same time.
Exactly.
But so intimately connected. I know one of the key aspects is that breaking of the fast at sunset.
Right.
Iftar. What makes that so special?
Iftar is just a time for coming together, for sharing a meal, stories, laughter. It's a reminder you're not alone in this journey.
Yeah.
And it's not just limited to family and friends. Mosques often host these large community iftars, welcoming everyone from all walks of life.
I've always been fascinated by that. Like that open invitation.
It's beautiful.
To share a meal, to connect with strangers. Just that simple act of breaking bread, it's such a powerful symbol of unity and hospitality.
It is. And it's not just about the food. It's about creating that space where everyone feels welcome.
And accepted.
Exactly.
Regardless of background beliefs. That actually brings to mind another tradition. The Tarawih prayers.
Yes.
The number of people that gather in mosques to pray together is incredible.
It's an incredible sight. Just rows upon rows of people, shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
United in prayer. It's tangible, that shared spiritual energy.
And it's interesting that even the number of units of prayer can differ.
It can.
It highlights the diversity, but maintains that unity.
It does. It's about recognizing there are different paths to the same destination.
Yeah.
And, even though there might be those variations in practice, the essence of it, the intention, remains the same. And there's this beautiful belief that completing the Tarawih prayers with the imam is like praying all night.
Yeah.
It speaks to that importance of communal worship, supporting and uplifting each other. And speaking of supporting others, there's also that act of charity, right?
There is, yeah. Zakat al-Fitr. And it's given at the end of Ramadan before the Eid prayer.
So it's like a final act of purification, making sure even those less fortunate can take part in the joy of Eid.
Exactly. A reminder that Ramadan isn't just about personal spiritual growth. It's about extending compassion and generosity to those around us.
That's such an important point. It brings us back to taqwa and how it shows up in our actions towards others. It's really amazing how Ramadan brings together personal growth and that social responsibility.
It is.
It's like this beautiful tapestry. Individual striving, but also collective upliftment.
It's a powerful reminder that our spiritual journeys are really connected to the well-being of those around us.
And speaking of journeys, there's one night that stands out in Ramadan. Laylat al-Qadr, the night of power. You can just feel the anticipation. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you enter those last 10 nights of Ramadan, the whole energy shifts. There's this sense of urgency, a desire to, make the most of every single moment, because you know that this incredibly blessed night is hidden somewhere within them.
And I love how even the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, didn't reveal the exact date. It's like, what's the wisdom in that?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Some scholars suggest that by concealing the exact date, it encourages us to, strive in our worship throughout those last 10 nights rather than just focusing on one specific night.
It's like this divine treasure hunt.
Exactly.
You have to be constantly vigilant, devoted, and some even believe that the night changes each year.
It does, yeah. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
That collective anticipation.
Yeah.
Muslims all over the world dedicating those nights to prayer, seeking forgiveness, hoping to experience that profound night.
Mosques must be overflowing, the air just thick with devotion, anticipation.
Oh, absolutely.
And for those seeking even deeper immersion, there's the practice of itikaf, right?
Yes, itikaf. It's like a spiritual retreat, usually observed in the mosque. Individuals seclude themselves for a period of time, dedicating themselves to worship and contemplation.
It's like stepping back from the world to step forward in your spiritual journey.
Exactly, yeah.
Intensifying an already intense month. And during these last 10 nights, there's a specific supplication the Prophet recommended, right?
He did. He advised saying, "O Allah, you are pardoning. You love to forgive, so forgive me."
Wow.
Imagine saying those words with all sincerity, hoping to be enveloped by divine mercy on that most blessed night.
It's beautiful.
It is.
And powerful. It really encapsulates what Ramadan is about. Seeking forgiveness, drawing closer to Allah.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing our own imperfections and acknowledging our need for that divine grace.
So we've talked a lot about the spiritual aspects, but I'm curious about the practical side of fasting. For someone new to this, abstaining from food and drink for a whole month, it might seem daunting.
It can, yeah. But the human body is incredibly resilient. And one of the most important things is to listen to your body, take it slow. Don't try to do too much too soon. Gradually ease into it.
And practically speaking, what does fasting actually entail? What's allowed, what's not during those fasting hours?
Well, the basic principle is abstaining from any food, drink, and intimate relations from dawn till sunset. But there are some nuances, of course.
Right.
Like, it's perfectly fine to brush your teeth, but you should avoid swallowing any water.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's about maintaining that physical and spiritual state of fasting.
What about accidentally tasting something while you're cooking? Those little things we often do without thinking.
Well, Islam recognizes that we're human and we're prone to those little forgetful moments. There's a hadith that says if someone eats or drinks forgetfully while fasting, they should complete their fast, for Allah has fed them and given them drink.
So reassuring.
It is.
Compassionate. But what if someone intentionally breaks their fast? Maybe because they're struggling.
Well, there are valid reasons to break a fast, of course. It's like illness, travel, medical conditions. And if someone breaks their fast without a valid excuse, they can make it up later by fasting on other days or by paying a specific amount in charity.
So there's flexibility.
There is. It's not about rigid adherence, but rather about understanding and compassion.
And I know there are some people who are completely exempt from fasting.
Yes, there are exemptions. Children who haven't reached puberty, pregnant or nursing women, the elderly, those with certain medical conditions, and travelers.
It's interesting how even within fasting, there's this recognition of individual needs.
Yeah. It speaks to that wisdom and compassion at the heart of Islamic teachings.
Yeah.
It's about encouraging everyone to participate in a way that is meaningful and beneficial to them.
And when we talk about breaking the fast, we're talking about iftar, that sunset meal everyone looks forward to.
Oh, iftar. It's a time of joy, relief, families and communities coming together, sharing a meal, stories, laughter, just celebrating gratitude, acknowledging those blessings of sustenance and togetherness.
It's really powerful how something as simple as a meal can have such social and spiritual meaning.
It is. It's a reminder that even in our own individual journeys, we're connected to those around us.
Yeah.
And that shared experience just strengthens those bonds.
Now, I know people are curious about the effects of fasting for an entire month. Does it have any impact on the body, good or bad?
That's a great question. And this is where science and spirituality, really intersect.
Okay.
There's so much research emerging on the health benefits of intermittent fasting, and a lot of it aligns with what we see in Ramadan.
Can you give us some examples?
Sure. Studies suggest that fasting can improve something called insulin sensitivity. That's key for regulating blood sugar. It can also help lower blood pressure, reduce inflammation, and there's even some evidence it might promote cellular repair.
So it really is like a detox.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a time to reset, recalibrate, give our bodies a chance to rest, rejuvenate, while nurturing that spiritual growth.
But I imagine it's important to approach it with wisdom, right?
Yeah.
And moderation.
Absolutely. Listen to your body, stay hydrated, and when you do break your fast, choose those nutritious, wholesome foods.
Right.
Overindulging at iftar kind of defeats the purpose, both physically and spiritually.
That's a good point. It's about finding that balance, nourishing both body and soul.
Exactly. That's the essence of Ramadan, finding that equilibrium within ourselves, between our individual needs and our responsibilities to others, and ultimately between our earthly lives and our connection to the divine.
Ramadan really does have so many dimensions: physical, emotional, spiritual, social. It's not just a list of things to do. It's like a way of life for that whole month.
It really is.
Yeah.
And what's so inspiring is that, the effects last way beyond Ramadan. It's about, carrying those lessons that transform self into the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's like Ramadan plants those seeds for spiritual growth.
Exactly.
And then it's up to us to nurture them so they can keep growing. And we saw that in our research too. There's this emphasis on keeping the momentum going.
Yeah.
After Ramadan ends, what are some things people can do?
Well, one powerful practice is continuing to fast for 6 days during the month of Shawwal, which comes right after Ramadan. And it's actually considered equivalent to fasting for a whole year. It's like a spiritual booster shot.
I love that. Extending those benefits, reinforcing the discipline you've built.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be these big, grand gestures.
Right.
It's often those small, consistent acts of kindness, charity, mindfulness. Those really make the difference. And remember, in Islam, consistency in good deeds, even if they seem small, is so valuable.
That's such a good point. It's not about being perfect. It's about that continuous improvement,
That's exactly.
Making those positive changes part of your everyday life. It makes me think of that hadith. May he be humbled who enters the month of Ramadan and it passes before he is forgiven.
So powerful, right?
Yeah.
It really challenges us to think about the purpose of Ramadan, to really use it as that opportunity for forgiveness, renewal, growth.
Yeah. It's like a reminder that time is precious, and we should be using it every chance we get to become better versions of ourselves.
Absolutely. And that's a message that speaks to everyone,
Yeah,
whether you observe Ramadan or not.
so true. It's about recognizing that desire we all have for connection, for something bigger than ourselves,
Yeah.
and then actively seeking that in our daily lives.
It's amazing what exploring something like Ramadan can do. It opens you up to, self-reflection, encourages you to look inward.
And maybe outward, too. Maybe this deep dive has sparked something in our listeners. A curiosity to learn more, to connect with the Muslim community, to even experience Ramadan firsthand.
I hope so. It would be wonderful if our conversation served as like a starting point for further exploration and understanding.
Well, on that note, we've come to the end of our Ramadan deep dive. We hope we've given you a better sense of what this month is all about.
We have.
The meaning, the practices, the impact it has.
And maybe even inspired you to begin your own journey of spiritual discovery.
To all those observing, Ramadan Mubarak. May this month be filled with blessings, peace, and spiritual enlightenment.